Welcome to Peninsula Seniors Out and About. We're back at the Greystone Mansion in Beverly Hills for the Concours d'Elegance. Let's go have a look at the cars. I'm here with Leslie Kendall from the Peterson Museum. What did you bring today?
We brought a 1913 Mercer Type 35J, probably the most original Mercer in existence.
And this was featured on the flyer for the Concours. Can you talk about that?
Well, we were very excited that they chose this car to be the signature car for the entire event. We couldn't be more delighted.
Can we have a look around?
Well, the Peterson Museum brought this car because it's one of our oldest cars in the collection. It's a brass era car, it's a 1913, and we thought it would represent the museum well and serve as kind of a counterpoint to all the later model cars that are here today. Well, now I'd like to show you some of the features of the car, starting with the front and working our way back. And I think people will be glad the cars are how they are today, because back in 1913 you had to crank start this car. You had to do about half a dozen different things to set it up, and then you grab the hand crank and you gave it a good yank, and if everything was set up properly, it would start on the first turn. And if you're driving at night, it got a little even more interesting, because you had to open up the headlights, and then you had to turn on the gas, and you had to light them with a match, close them back up, and then ride off into the darkness. But it gives a really genuine motoring experience, a true seat of the pants. And it's a wonderful car. It handles beautifully, very flat. The Lamborghini of its day. I think that anybody that rode in this car would have been very envied. As people can see, this car is pretty basic. It really doesn't even have a body at all. It's just a couple of chairs sitting on a frame, and behind it's a gas tank and a trunk. But you can see the dashboard is all business. You've got a couple of gauges, only the ones that you absolutely need. You've got the magneto switch, and you've got right in front of you, of course, that really interesting monocle windshield, which is about all the protection you could hope for in a Mercer back in 1913. Let me tell you about the couple of the controls on the Mercer. Starting with the steering wheel, you've got right in the middle on the steering wheel hub the spark control and the throttle. These two levers on the steering wheel control the spark and the throttle. The spark sets the engine advance depending on when you're starting the engine, or if it's already warm, if it's already been running for a while. And the throttle is kind of like a primitive cruise control. You set it and the engine will maintain that speed for as long as you need it to. Right next to you, you've got a couple of levers that most people wonder what these are about, and a lot of old cars have them. One of them is the brake. This one right here, it operates the brake. And this one right here operates the transmission. It's a 3-speed plus reverse. And right behind it, you've got a bulb horn. Back in the day, they didn't have electronic horns or electric horns, so you had to squeeze the bulb and get the air through the neck. And right back here, this little interesting device, this is how you pressurize the fuel tank, because there wasn't a fuel pump. So you had to pressurize it, and then that would force the fuel up into the engine bay and into the carburetor. And moving a little bit forward, and this is something you don't see on cars today, we've got an accelerator pedal that's actually outside of the bodywork. Well, part of the excitement of driving this car is the real wind in the face motoring experience. And not just that, but it's also wind up your pant leg, because your right leg is actually outside of the car controlling the accelerator pedal, which is here. You put your heel here and you control it this way by pushing on it. It's very, very interesting, a little hard to get used to, but you understand why they did it. There's not a lot of room on the inside. Well, the lighting equipment on the Mercer includes this gigantic spotlight that's sitting right in the middle of the dashboard. And attached to the spotlight is a red tube, and this tube goes to the Presto Light tank, because how you lit this was with a match. You had to open the lens, strike a match, light it, close the lens, and then you were on your way. And this was like looking into the sun when this was lit. Very, very true, bright light. And the other lighting equipment on the car, these cowl lamps, and these are actually kerosene lit. You unscrew the little pots underneath it, you fill them with kerosene, you screw them back on, and then you open the side like this, and you light it. And then depending on the intensity of light that you want, you have to actually adjust the wick with this little knob right under here. So it's a very primitive motoring experience, but it's a very satisfying one. And if you do it right, you're going to have a lot of fun. Well, I thought you'd like to see the engine, and here it is. It's a 4-cylinder, 5 liters, 60 horsepower, which back in 1913 was an awful lot for a little 2-seat roadster. As you can see, the exhaust comes out the left-hand side and it goes under the car. And if you wanted a little bit more of a dramatic entrance somewhere, you hit the exhaust cutout with your foot and that would bypass the muffler and you'd get this great raucous noise. Okay, now that we've seen the intake side of the engine, let's go to the other side and look at the exhaust side. Well, this is the right side of the engine, which on this car is actually the driver's side. And you can see on the side of the cylinders are little priming cups. What you would do is you would drip gasoline in those and open them up so the gas would go right into the cylinder, so that when you cranked it by hand, it would fire right away, hopefully. This car was actually owned at one time by Phil Hill. Very, very famous Grand Prix driver, American world champion. And I think Phil appreciated this car because it's a huge engine, lots and lots of torque, and it's pretty stylish ride too. Well, we moved from the front, now we're onto the back, and I think the most apparent thing from the rear, which is the end of the car that most people saw back in 1913, are the 2 spares. I think what people have to remember is that the roads were very, very bad. Still an awful lot of dirt roads, and there's still a lot of horses out there, and their horseshoes would drop nails every so often, so you get a lot of punctures, so you had to be ready. And it's got a teeny, teeny little trunk, which is really just for a couple of hand tools, because back in 1913, you did have to get out and fix your car pretty frequently. Also in the back, you've got a rear tail light. It's not really a stop light because it doesn't go on when you push the brake. You light it at night and then you just leave it on the whole time. And under the car, I think you can see there are drum brakes, but only on the rear wheels. And those drum brakes are actuated by a hand lever outside of the car. There is a foot brake, but that foot brake operates on the drive shaft. So it's kind of for emergencies. Well, what was common in 1913 and isn't common today are wooden wheels. And these are a holdover from the horse and carriage day, which was a common practice back in 1913. Interesting thing about wooden wheels is they would dry out over time and they would start to squeak. So what you would need to do is drive through a puddle or two or drive through some standing water, and then the wood would absorb the water, it would expand a little bit, and then you wouldn't squeak anymore. So it's a problem that people don't have to worry about today.
I'm here with Jeff Lotman, and I understand there's a story about this car, quite a few trophies. Can you tell us about that?
Sure. What's really great about this car, this is actually a competition SS100. It actually raced in period over 30 times, and it actually won 12 times. The driver's name is C.E. Truitt, which is pretty cool. What's really even more amazing is that when his widow died, they actually put at auction all of his trophies, and we're actually able to buy the original trophies from 1938 and 39 that actually is for this car, which is an incredible find.
Oh, amazing, amazing. Can we have a look around?
Sure.
Can you talk to us about some of the features?
Sure. What's really great about this car is they actually made a lot of changes to make it race. To begin with, is these fenders are specifically for racing. The original SS100 had a much more beautiful, wider fender, but these were taken out in 38 when they actually started racing it. They also proceeded to drill the holes out in the frame to make it that much lighter, because they really wanted, obviously, speed really mattered an awful lot on the car. They also obviously put a tar bar in the front so you could tow it off the track. And this is a 6-cylinder engine, 2,633 cc's. It actually goes about 125 horsepower, or what they call 19.1 bhp, braking horsepower. What's also really wild, this thing will hit about 100 miles an hour, even back then in that day. What I was very excited about when I was doing the research on this car is we actually found original vintage racing photos of C.E. Truitt racing. I'm also glad to see he's also in the lead in all these shots. There's no other cars around him. So these are actually him. You can also already see the side pipe. You can see the fenders were already changed. I have other photos that show the car racing earlier that actually had the wider fenders, and they hadn't yet put the single exhaust to make it faster. So he kept on improving the car each time. As far as I know, this is the only SS100 that actually has a single exhaust. And again, those photos show that it was done in period. You can even see the way they actually, attached to the engine here. It's just really amazing, and the sound on this thing is incredible. It's got a really great throat. It's very loud. It pops, which is exciting. My neighbors hate it, but I love it.
I'm here with Richard Stanley. It's good to see you again, Richard.
Great to see you too, Betty.
And what did you bring to the event today?
Well, I brought a 1938 Cadillac 60 Special sedan, which is right behind me.
How did you happen to buy this car?
Well, I always admired the lines of the car. It was a very influential design, and I thought if I owned one pre-war car, it would be one of these. And I never saw one until 1987 and was on a car lot on Melrose Avenue right here in Hollywood.
How convenient for you.
Well, there began a story, a long tale. It was a difficult restoration.
Well, can we have a look around? You kind of talk about it?
Absolutely. Let's go. Let's take a look at the 38 Cadillac 60 Special. This car was built by General Motors over the objection of the board. They figured that at the depths of the Depression, they didn't need yet another unique Cadillac. This one, no other Cadillac shared this running gear. It was originally designed as a LaSalle, but then they figured the cost to produce it would be so great it had to be sold at a Cadillac price. But it turned out to be what many people believe was the first car of the 1940s because it initiated a new look for sedans. First of all, the car is very much lower. Harley Earl took his thumb apparently on the drawing board and just erased the running boards and dropped the car down much lower than comparable cars of the era. They also put in two-piece doors in the fashion of a convertible, which gave it a very sporty, light, thin look to the canopy. And most important, they put a coupe trunk on the back of a sedan because the sedans of this era had a kind of a bustle back, but this car has a long, lithe, coupe, sporty look to it. And they initiated in doing that what we call now the three-box sedan. A couple of features I'd like to point out for you are on the front end here. Most important is the low horizontal grille, which actually emulated the Cord 810, 812 grille, which was designed initially by Gordon Burig for Harley Earl. Harley Earl didn't like the grille and didn't get along very well with Burig. He went over to Auburn Cord Duesenberg and designed the Cord 810 and 812, which became a big design hit. And here Cadillac is emulating the design that Harley Earl initially rejected about 6 or 8 years earlier. It's the first year for the so-called alligator grille, and you open the hood with the hood ornament. It actually is a functional piece of hardware. And the years prior to that, the ornament was exactly that, just an ornament. But here it's a handle, in effect. It still has the old-fashioned non-sealed beam headlights. And this one has an unusual headlight arrangement where it has low beam, high beam, and like one of each. So that it has a sort of a low beam city and a high beam country and an intermediate headlight system with one of each. The fenders are what they called suitcase fenders. They have a crease, which Bill Mitchell very much admired. The metalworking at the Detroit Institute of Art and how the suits of armor had these wonderful creases. So he borrowed that from the armor in the Detroit Institute of Art. So that pretty much takes care of the front end. But again, it's a Cord-influenced front end, very much lower, with the beautiful creased fenders on it. Here we are on the side of the 38 Cadillac 60 Special, and what made the thing special was the absence of running boards, the very low passenger compartment, and most important, the two-piece doors. This part does not roll down as a convertible would. The window rolls within this channel, but it gave the doors a very light look, and it's called, again, a two-piece door. The interior is a rather simple interior. It's a Fleetwood style of trimming, and the part in between, which became a Fleetwood design Q later, was actually borrowed by Harley Earl and Bill Mitchell from the French car, which is called a Poire, and it was a panoramique, and Harley Earl and Bill Knudsen saw this car at the Paris Auto Show, I believe in 34 or 5. They admired it a lot. Bill Knudsen said, why don't we buy one? Harley Earl said, don't waste your money. I can do it better when I get back to Detroit. And this is the result. It has a very art moderne dashboard. And this particular car has an optional radio, but you'll notice that it has no radio antenna. The antenna on this car is actually under the car. It's called a running board antenna, and they had to put it somewhere because the earlier cars, the very first cars that were sedans or closed cars, had the antennas in the roof. But when they initiated the all-metal turret top in 1935 at General Motors. They had to put the antennas somewhere else, so they ended up underneath the car. All right, well, the back of the car on the 38 Cadillac 60 Special was the most important design element. As you can see, it looks very much like a coupe trunk, and it has the last year of the stand-up license plate, and if you look at the other taillight, you can see the very first fin on a Cadillac. It's sort of an embryonic fin, but there it is. The next year they put the license plate in the trunk, but I kind of like the stand-up. It has a very sort of a continental flair. It also has the trademark Cadillac three-piece rear window. There is a shade on this car. I think it was about a $10 option for a Cadillac in 1938. And again, those nice suitcase fenders, which are very much attached. The inspiration for this car, I don't believe, was the airplane, which was an inspiration for a lot of cars. I think this was more of a locomotive influence. And again, it was the very first car of the 40s in many people's opinion. And the back of the car, it's the only car that I can think of where a sedan influenced the look of a coupe, because if you park this car next to a Lincoln Continental coupe of a few years later, the roofline is dead on. Usually the sedans try to imitate the coupes, but in this case the coupe imitated a sedan. The V8 emblem is really very art moderne. I also always wondered, why didn't they line up the trunk hinges to the bar brakes on the rear window? But by pushing them a little to the outside, it gives the lower part of the car a more sort of massive road-hugging look. Harley Earl always said he wanted to promote the rectangle at the expense of the square. He wanted things longer, lower, wider, rather than taller, narrower, and shorter.
I'm here with Ron Stauber. And what did you bring to the Concours today?
I have a 1933 Singer Sports 9.
Wow. I'm sure there's a story behind this as to how you bought it.
I did. It was at an auction down in Palm Springs. I'm standing at the back of the room. I'm half blind. They brought this car up. I thought it was an MGTC. The guy waved the panel and says, "Do I have an opening bid?" And I raised my paddle, and before I put my paddle down, I owned it.
Oh, that's great. That's great. Well, can we have a walk around? You kind of tell us some of the major features?
Absolutely. This is a 1933 Singer. It has a 972cc motor under 1,000 cc's. It was originally built by Singer Motors, not related to the Singer sewing machine, but manufactured by the people that made the bicycle back in 1850. This car is one of two on the road in North America, according to Singer Society's pre-war register to Phil Avis. It's originally built as a four-seater. It was delivered in 1933 to Moody's Motors in Brighton, England. It was prepared to be both a touring car and a rally and a race car. It has the helmet fenders, the stone guards, obviously the Singer's badges and the horn and the driving light. A license plate is the 8E1822, which matches, by the way, the year of manufacture plate in California license on the back of the car. Obviously the bonnet straps, the racing hood quick release radiator cap. One of the interesting features of the 1933 Singer is that this one has what they call the helmet fenders. The front fenders are shaped like helmets. It has no running boards whatsoever, and you've got, again, the rounded fenders in the rear. Actually, I should be using the word wings because it's a British car. It has a small gas tank. It's a four-cylinder engine. Top speed with the racing Brooklyn windscreens is approximately 65 miles an hour. With a regular windshield, it'll go approximately 60 miles an hour. The year after this, they started making a larger motor and built it for Le Mans racing. It finished 13th in its class at Le Mans in 1934 at an average speed, I believe it was under 50 miles an hour. The tax receipt on this car, the tax disc, reflects that it was delivered to Moody's Motors on March 28, 1933. It has the Brighton stamp on it and the colors of the car written. The tax paid, I believe, was £9. The car originally in 1933 cost 185 pounds. The United States had just gone off the gold standard, so the price of this car in 1933, if you had bought it in the United States for delivery in the United States, would have been just under $1,000 US in 1933. This is a 972cc engine with twin downdraft carburetors. You'll see the vents here for partially cooling. What's interesting on the water and the water pump, it's all gravity works. What happens is the hot water rises and the cold water goes down, and it just circulates on its own with the fan. There's no water pump. The car has a overhead camshaft, which was very advanced for its time. It is a chain-driven drive on the engine. You'll see here the Singer car number from Coventry, and also the plaque that shows the number of the engine and all of the matching numbers on the car. You'll notice that it has the Hartford adjustable shock absorbers, and it also was one of the first cars that had the hydraulic brakes.
I'm here with Aaron Weiss. Good to see you again, Aaron.
Well, likewise. Nice day here in Beverly Hills.
Oh, it is. It's gorgeous. Well, what did you bring today to the Concours? And I'm sure there's a story. There's always a story to all of your cars.
Well, thank you. Today the beater we brought today is a 1933 V16 Cadillac. It's a Fisher body, one-off. And so in 1933, that was the only one they made.
And how did you happen to buy it? There's a story. There always is.
Well, there is a story, but I'm not sure it's suitable for mixed company. This car was owned by a fellow back east that had a chain of strip joints. And he sold me the car with and he sent me emails of pictures of the car, and that was fine in various stages of restoration. And I said I'd buy it. We negotiated a price. And he says, I have one more picture to send you. So he sends me this picture of the car, and it's out by his home that's on this lake, and draped over the car is one of his dancers wearing nothing but boots. And so my wife got the mail and opened it up, and it was educational for her, and she looked like she had a frame-off restoration too. And so the car was now dubbed the whore car. And so whenever we show this car, everybody knows it as the whore car.
Well, can we have a look around?
Yeah, well, we'll get her undressed. How's that? 1933 Cadillacs are well known with these multi-fin bumpers, and all of them had 18-karat gold-plated hood ornaments. So the cars are very distinctive, and when you see one, you know exactly what's coming down the street at you. We're going to lift the bonnet here and take a look at the engine compartment. And the 33s were a transition year. They moved away from the vacuum tank, auto vac fuel delivery, and they went to a mechanical fuel pump, which made things a whole lot better, changed the carburation system. And so these cars, the 33s, run so much better than the 30 through 32s. So it's really a much better car. All of the exhaust manifolds are all porcelainized, and that's how they came at that point in time. The V16 engines were really art pieces, and General Motors knew it, and that's why the hood opens up as it does, and the louvers can open to show that engine. The 33s were best known for their spinners, and these were long before hot rod guys knew what spinners were. I think probably over the term, a lot of these wheels ended up on hot rods because of the spinners. It is always interesting to look at these cars and wonder how people really drove them in their day, because the running boards are kind of interesting. We have these strips of rubber, which is supposed to keep your feet off the paint, but you got to be really careful, because as you get in and out of the car, you rub against those rubber strips and they'll come out of the chrome moldings that they sit in. So the cars are rather delicate, given the fact that they're supposed to be so big and sturdy. The doors are all suicide doors, open up back, and that's another thing that I think 33 was probably one of the last years that these kind of doors were offered because of the safety issues. The difference between a Roadster and a two-door convertible coupe are the roll-up windows. So this car has roll-up windows, which makes it a two-door convertible coupe versus a car that would not have roll-up windows but rather curtains, and that would be a roadster. Also, this Brougham bar is more of a cabriolet trim as opposed to roadster trim. The interior of these cars is really intricate, and the gold hood ornament is picked up with the gold plating on the instrument faces. Right now we have the rumble seat open, and gives it a sportier motif. On the opposite side, there are little stepping stones like for people to step in. So you'd step left foot, left foot, and then into the back. And that way you could take 4 people, although the people in the rear would be probably a little chilly on a day like today. We have a luggage rack. We don't have a trunk on it, but the luggage rack would fold down and you'd have a trunk on there. And inside the trunk, you'd probably have fitted luggage. So when you went on a trip, the fitted luggage would go in the trunk, and when you get to a hotel, you'd pull it out and check in.
I'm here with Tony Rackley. And how'd you get involved with cars, Tony?
It's in my blood. I've been around cars all my life. I'm from London, and basically I came to California because of the American dream, but also this is the car capital of the world. So if you want to be into cars, no greater place.
And what are you doing now?
I take care of a collection for a European chap. The collection's based here in Los Angeles. We're upwards of about 100 cars right now. Predominantly American cars. We have a couple of European cars, but predominantly American, pre-war. And we do 50s, Buicks, Chryslers, Corvettes, and various, like I mentioned, pre-war cars.
Can you talk about the car that we brought today?
Today I bought a 1937 Cord, 812 Cord, and it's a front-wheel drive car. It was a design that Gordon Burek designed. He was going to do a Baby Duesenberg, which never came into play, but when he was asked to do this design, he bought some of the design features he had for the Baby Duesenberg. It's a front-wheel drive car, very rare. Cord was one of the first mass production cars to go into front-wheel drive. This was the last car they built. Another one great feature, it's got retracting headlights. They are hand cranked from each side of the dashboard, and it has external exhaust pipes and a pre-select transmission, which means that you would engage the gear prior to actually hitting the clutch, and then it would drive like that. It's kind of like electronic magnetic situation, and it works very well. It's a flathead V8 with these external exhausts. This is an 812 version. The car prior to this, the 36, is an 810, and it didn't have the external exhausts. And the story goes that one of the design guys added these without EL Cord's authorization, and when he first saw it, he was a little mad that it was done without his authorization, but he actually liked the improvement, so he let it actually go. We can see on this interior that the gear selection mechanism is this little lever here, and basically it's pre-select. So while the car is idling, foot off the clutch, you can put it into first. The moment you put it into the foot on the clutch, it will engage the gear, and you can pull away in first. You put it in the second, drive along. When you're going to get in the second gear, you put your foot on the clutch, and it engages the gear. Very, very simple. You can see it has a beautiful engine turn dash, and it has a working radio, but it only gets old radios for some bizarre reason. And it's just very functional. All big gauges, the oil pressure, one of the largest oil pressure gauge I've ever seen in a car. But you want to know that your pressure is good. So, very beautiful interior. And one of the big features of this car is the teardrop fenders. They came back into a point. It's just beautiful. It's actually just a rolling sculpture. It's just a work of art. It's one of my favorite cars in the whole collection, just the way it looks. It's just sexy as hell. Okay, this is one of the first cars to actually feature a full trunk. Most of the cars of that period were running trunks on a frame on the back of the vehicle. So this was a very modern car relative to what was available at the time. It was actually kind of very futuristic. And I just couldn't imagine what it would have been like to have seen one of these for the first time driving down the road. You probably would have thought you had been abducted by aliens or something, because it was really nothing compared to this look at that time.
I'm here with Hiram Bond, and it's good to see you. You come to our Coffee and Cars in Palos Verdes.
Yes, thank you very much. It's good to be here.
And what did you bring to the Concours today?
I brought a Ferrari 365 GT and also an Iso Grifo.
How did you happen to find the Ferrari?
I was at a car show in Palm Springs and I was admiring the car, and I actually asked the gentleman if he would be willing to sell the car, and he said that he wanted to buy a different Ferrari, and his wife said only one Ferrari. So I lucked out and he actually was willing to sell me the car, and that was a few years ago.
Can we have a look around at the Ferrari?
Absolutely.
And then we'll go on to the other one.
This 365 GT 2+2 is one of around 800 made. It is a front engine V12 and it's a 4-passenger, and it's longer than most Ferraris of this vintage. It's got a very long body to accommodate the large rear seat and the trunk. I think the sidelines of the car are very beautiful with the Barani wire wheels, and there's a lot of chrome on the car as opposed to some of the more modern Ferraris. It's a front engine V12, and you hear people talk about the 50s and 60s Ferrari with that beautiful whine that the engine makes. Right at about 3,500 RPM, it really starts to open up, and it just makes a beautiful sound when you're driving the car. Actually, a lot of the power and torque is at about 3,500 RPM and up as well. Some of the later model Ferraris, of course, went to a mid to rear engine configuration. So these early cars with the large V12 engines placed in the front are very collectible and very desirable. I'd like to show you some of the features of the interior. This car was the fortunate recipient of a ground-up restoration. They went back with all of the original Ferrari leather and redid all of the wood. And as you can see, the interior is very roomy. I'm almost 6'4", and it's a very comfortable car for me to drive in and take short road trips in. And you can actually fit a smaller person in the back seat if need be. The car has air conditioning. It's very comfortable to drive in. So you don't have to suffer from any of the heat from the engine. You can roll the windows up and turn on the air, and you feel like you're in a much more modern car. One of my favorite features of this body style has always been the long rear end of the car with all of the extra chrome on the back. I think it's a very sexy body style. But of course, the USC license plate is the top feature of this car, in my opinion. I always get lots of compliments on it and lots of laughs.
I'm here with Hiram Bond, and he brought 2 cars to the Concours. We're going to have a look at the second one. And what did you bring to the Concours for your second car?
I brought this 1970 Iso Grifo, and it is one of around 400 made. And it's a car that was built in Italy in the mid to late 60s and early 70s, and it actually has a Chevrolet drivetrain. They were built to compete with Ferrari, and they imported their engines from Chevrolet for reliability on the racetrack, and then they ended up making some production models. So it's an interesting combination of a beautiful Italian body design and an American engine, so you can actually service it yourself at your corner gas station or whatever you need to do.
Well, how did you happen to buy this car?
In the 80s and early 90s, you could still find these because they hadn't really hit their sweet spot as far as value. But then they became just impossible to find. And there was actually a broker up in Washington State that had this come available, and I happened to call like within hours that it became available, and I was lucky enough to grab it before somebody else did.
Well, can we have a walk around?
Absolutely. Again, this is a beautiful Italian body style. This is one of around 70 of the long nose version Iso Grifo. This was the later years. They put this extended nose. It's about 8 inches longer than the previous body style. An all handmade body in Italy, beautiful hand-stitched interior, and again the American drivetrain, which I can show you in just a minute. Again, one of the features I enjoyed the most about the car when I researched it is the fact that it has a Corvette drivetrain. This particular model is not a big block. It is a small block 327. Some of them did come with big blocks. It has a Chevrolet 3-speed automatic transmission, and the vehicle actually has air conditioning that is also Chevrolet, so you get to enjoy the beautiful Italian coachwork with the reliability of an American engine and actually having air conditioning when you're going on your road trips. The interior is all hand-stitched, handmade in Italy, And it's a little snug in here. I'm almost 6'4", and it's a little tight for me, but once I'm in, I fit. And it's a very comfortable driving position. There's a deep footwell, so it's easy to reach the pedals. And again, 3-speed automatic transmission, so it makes for very leisurely Sunday drives. The car is very easy to drive. It's quick, and it enjoys around 80-90 miles an hour as a comfortable speed for it. It's really not fast by today's standards. If you have a newer Porsche or a newer Ferrari, it's not fast compared to that. My favorite feature of the car actually is the rear end styling. I love the sloping rear glass and the silver targa band and the tail lights in the back. I just think it's very beautiful going down the road when you get that shot from the back.
We're back with Tony Rackley, and you brought another car to the Concours today. Can you tell us about it?
Yeah, it's a 1953 Corvette. 1953 is the first year the Corvettes were made. This is actually the 60th anniversary of Corvette. That's what we're celebrating here today at Greystone. And we bought one of our cars. We actually have two Corvettes, 53s. This one's number 33, and we also have number 32.
Wow.
And we just purchased actually 2013 number 33 60th anniversary edition Corvette. So we're going to have them side by side.
Oh,
but this
so
very interesting car. It was one of only 300 built. If you can believe it, they couldn't sell them originally.
Really?
They wasn't taken to. It was a small, at that time people were driving big American Yank tanks. So this, a little European style go-fast sports car wasn't very appealing. So it took a little while to take off, but obviously, as we know today, it took off very well.
Very well.
Very well indeed. So, as I say, this is number 33. They're only available in polo white, and I believe that I reckon there's about 225 left out of the 300 originally built. So they're quite a valuable car today. Yeah.
Will you give us a closer-up look?
Absolutely, be happy to do so. And here is our 1953 Corvette. It's number 33 out of 300 total built. As you can see, it's a very beautiful car. It's actually made of fiberglass, one of the very first mass-produced fiberglass cars ever built. And even to this day, Corvettes are still made by fiberglass. You can see it's beautiful chrome, which was the flavor of the 1950s. Little chrome bumpers, which I wouldn't imagine would do much today if you were in an accident. But just a beautiful car around. Okay, with the styling with this car, in the 50s, everything was about planes and jets and rockets. So you'll find a lot of features that are very kind of aero. This looks like a wing, and the way the trim goes down the back. One of the telltale signs you can tell all early Corvettes were 6 cylinders. 53 and 54 are 6 cylinders. 55 they made the conversion to V8. The way you tell for a V8 is on the Chevrolet badge here. You'd have a gold V that would denote a V8. So very difficult to tell them apart unless you knew them details. Another thing is the earlier hubcaps were slightly different. Very valuable, almost impossible to find today. Same with the gas cap today. I'd just been told by somebody that these gas caps, original gas cap which this car has, can be upwards of $500 to locate if you were ever able to locate one. Only available in white with red interior. In 54 you got a couple of other options, red, blue and black, but 53 only available in white. And here we have a straight 6. It's a 235 cubic inch, making 150 horsepower. The early cars were 150 and they later went to 155 horsepower. But it's a triple Carter side draft setup, and they're very notorious for loading up, becoming very rich, and when you turn them off, the carbs seem to leak gas. And when I looked online this week, that turned to be a very common fault, but I was able to fix it this week, so no more gas leakage for me. And on the interior, they were only available in red at that time, and only 2 options. That was the self-seeking radio and heater. This has only 123 miles on it since its restoration, probably over 10 years ago, and it still looks today like new. As I mentioned earlier, the features with the airplane, they got the wings here and the jet-like tail lights, And one of the distinctive things you can tell between an early car and a late car is all the early cars had short, stubby tailpipes, which actually made this whole black area black with soot. So when the cars, I think it was the following year, they made a much longer tailpipe, and that's one of the ways you can tell the difference at the back.
I'm here with Dick Messer. And what did you bring to the Concours today?
I brought my 1954 Corvette. I grew up in the 50s here in Southern California. I always thought that the first generation Corvettes were the most beautiful of Corvettes, and I still believe that. And I've got my 1954 here today.
How long have you owned it?
I've owned it about 3 years. I have a bunch of cars, and I finally opportunity presented itself to get this particular car, and I went ahead and bought it, and you know, then ended up rebuilding it, and it's what I have today. But I drive it.
So it's a daily driver for you?
Well, it's not a daily driver, but I do drive it. You know, a lot of these guys got these older cars, and they don't drive them. They just keep them in the garage. But I drive this one, and I love driving it.
Okay, and is there a story behind how you bought it or why you bought it?
Well, what happened was I was actually looking at the car. It was at an auction, and it didn't sell. Oh. And the gentleman was there, and he wanted a lot of money for the car. And I got into my car, and I left. It was actually in Scottsdale 3 years ago. And I left the auction and was driving home, and I got to Blythe, and I'm thinking, you know, I should have bought that car. So I called them back. I'd already bought another car. I had the car, the gentleman that was running the auction, and I called him up. I said, you know, that red Corvette that was in your auction, I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll give you X number of dollars for it, all in, a real low ball offer. Well, it turned out the guy was, I didn't know it at the time, but the guy was desperate for money, and he didn't want to take it home. The car came out of Connecticut. And so I made this lowball offer, and I said, you know, call me back in a half an hour if I've got a deal. If I don't, forget about it, like that. Guy called me in a half an hour and says, you bought yourself a Corvette. I was actually in Blythe. The car was still in Scottsdale, so then I arranged to have it shipped over to Los Angeles. But I bought the car, you know, after I'd left the thing, and on my way home, I'm just driving along thinking about this car and thinking how I'd like to put it in my garage, and I ended up with it, and I couldn't be happier. It's a great car.
It's a beautiful car.
Thank you. You know, in 1954, you were able to get it in black, red, or white, whereas in 1953, the first year, you could only get white with red interior. But after 1954, they decided to give you a little variety of colors. So this is the red color on the 1954.
Well, can you show us a closer-up look?
Sure, be glad to. You know, they normally came with a 6-cylinder motor. Mine has a V8 in it, V8 with a Tremec 5-speed. But it's been redone in a lot of ways. And I just think the style of these cars are so period and so nice. You know, it's really exciting to have the car and drive it around. The motor in this 1954 Corvette is a 1960 401 cubic inch Buick nailhead V8, meaning nailhead, the head and the valve trains go straight up and down perpendicular to the block rather than on normal V8. So it's a Buick nailhead V8. And it's been pretty well warmed over. It's about 425 horsepower. And this is the car that Corvette should have built in 1954. As a matter of fact, I have an article that was written in 1954 in Motor Trend magazine where they suggest that this is the car that General Motors should have built. And it actually is a road test of a 1954 Corvette with a Buick nailhead motor in it. And here you are. It's the same thing, 54 Corvette with a Buick nailhead. But then in 54, they'd figured out that Corvette needed more horsepower. In 55, with the same body style, Corvette did come out with a V8, again with a power guide transmission. You could get, there were very few of them built with 3-speed transmissions, but they mainly had power glide, and at least they put a V8 in them. But this car's got a Tremec 5-speed transmission, and it's just a lovely car to drive. I moved the seat back and down a little bit to give me more room in the cockpit, and it's just fun. What Corvette did in 53 and 54 is they had the steering wheel back away from the dashboard quite a bit. They weren't really interested with the ergonomics, with the comfort of driving the car, so the steering wheel was pretty much in your chest, which not only was uncomfortable, it was unsafe. What we've done here is we've cut down the steering column a little bit and moved the wheel forward, and then we move the seat back 4 inches and down 3 inches, and give you a lot more room in the cockpit. So this is what they should have done again in 54. But General Motors was pretty new at this. In 53 they built about 335, 300 even. And then in 54 they built about 3,000 Corvettes. So they were learning. There was a learning curve going on there. And of course today's modern Corvette is a very comfortable car to drive, but the way they came out in 53, 54, 55, they weren't that comfortable to drive long distance. Corvette was trying to be racy. They put these screens over the headlights of the cars. That was supposed to keep the rocks and debris out. This was a racing affectation. Didn't work very well on these Corvettes, but this was part of they're trying to get the racing crowd. They put the hubcaps on the car to make it look like a knockoff hub. He's got little wing affectations on there to make it look like a knockoff hub. Again, a racing situation. And then they were experimenting around with the side trim. The original early 53s didn't have the side trim on them, and they decided they'd do that. And of course you got the curved windshield. 1953 was 54 was a curved windshield was a new deal. And that was Geronimo's thing. They came out with the Cadillac Eldorado and the Buick Skylark with a curved windshield. So this was, again, a real racy deal. But they were trying to get into the sports car game, and this was their example. And of course in 55, Thunderbird came out with Ford came out with the Thunderbird as their competition. But the cars didn't sell very well until later on. These cars were not that popular in their day. They're very popular today. Well, here again, as a style situation, you had the little fins on the taillights. Was an affectation. Encasing the license plate in a encased deal was an aerodynamic thing, and again a styling clue. These cars were actually an iteration off a dream car in the GM Motoramas. That's where they really started. So these are a lot of styling cues on these things. Were actually on original dream cars. You had the exhaust pipes coming out through the bodywork in the back end, and the way they did the back bumper, if you can call it that, it wouldn't protect the car very well. Was just, it's all styling. The convertible top is underneath that cover there. Again, covered up, and it's just low and racy, and that's what they were trying to do. It's all from styling cues that they did with the Motorama cars.
I'm here with Bill Cord. And what did you bring to the Concours today?
We brought the 1956 Fiat Eden Roc.
And it's got quite a history. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, sure, certainly. Yes, this car was originally commissioned by Gianni Anelli, who was the owner of Fiat. And he commissioned these cars to be built for his villa in the south of France. And my grandfather, Bill Doheny, who grew up here at Greystone, was at the 1955 Paris Auto Show and saw the car and commissioned a second vehicle to be made. And it was, of course, produced and brought over here, and then went to the Doheny family lake house in Lake Arrowhead, where we have enjoyed it for almost 60 years now.
Oh, wow. Well, could we have a closer up look, Bill?
Of course. There were two of these cars produced. They were originally, the chassis is called a 600 Multipla, and the chassis were taken from the Fiat factory and delivered over to the Pininfarina factory. And Pininfarina, which is a very famous Italian coach builder, hand-built each chassis from the ground up. They presented Gianni Anelli, the owner of Fiat, with a clay model to approve, and he approved it. And the subsequent vehicles are what you see here. So all of this is one-off, original windshields, original vehicle, all the original wood and bodywork. You cannot buy any replacement parts for these. They do not exist. They're all completely hand-built. There are two of these vehicles in existence, and this is number 2. The woodwork that you see throughout the vehicle is a mixture of teak and mahogany. It is all handmade, tongue and groove. It's all the original wood, and every piece was made by hand. All of the rubber floor matting with the chevron patterning is all the original flooring that we were able to revive through a series of bleaching. The original Pininfarina logos and flags, and every piece of brightwork is all completely original. It's all completely handmade, and you can see the hammer strikes on a lot of the backside of the brightwork. So it's amazing the amount of hand work that went into these vehicles, as they are all basically hand built. Those silver devices are the one closest to you is the choke for the carburetor, and the one that's a little further away from you is the starter. That's how you start the vehicle. So why they did that, I have no idea, but it's very unique as things were back then. The car is absolutely wonderful to drive. It brings out amazing emotions from everybody who sees it, mostly smiles, and does it float? And no, it doesn't. It would sink like a rock. It's purely the nautical theme that brings out that reaction. You know, I remember being a little boy driving in this up at Lake Arrowhead with my grandfather driving me around in it and taking the trash cans up from the boathouse. So it has a huge amount of history for our family, and we all very much love it and enjoy it to this day also. And it's really fun to show it because they're very rare, and it's just a lot of fun.
I'm here with Tommy Dreese, and you have quite a history of racing. Can you talk about it a little bit?
Well, you know, ever since I was a kid and the first time I got my driver's license, growing up in Hollywood, I looked up to the north and saw the Hollywood sign, and I said, I'm going to start going up to Mulholland, and that's where I kind of got the bug.
Okay.
And then after that, recently, in the last 10 years, I've been racing professionally. I won the Trans Am Championship.
Congratulations.
And I'm currently in the American Le Mans Series.
Oh, wow.
I race a little NASCAR stuff, and so I love cars. Cars is everything.
Awesome, awesome. And you have a amazing car today here with you. Can you talk about it?
Well, what I have is behind us is a 1974 RSR. It's got a lot of great racing history. The person who made it famous was George Dyer. He actually, with another co-driver, Frizzell, they raced I don't know how many IMSA races, but some of the top races they did. I think they finished twice at Daytona, which was amazing for a 24-hour race. And then this little sucker behind me finished first overall at Sebring. And that's what this makes this car not only a very limited edition car, they only made 125 of them, but the actual racing history of it is what makes it everything.
Tommy, how did you get your hands on it?
You know, it was a real big risk. Let's put it this way, I would never be able to pay for the car now. The value, I was very lucky to get it 15 years ago, maybe more than 15 years ago. And I bought it from some nice people. It was in an ad. And I always wanted a Porsche. And I realized it was a race car. So I had called, and I bought the car sight unseen.
Oh, wow.
And it was, it was a little rough around the edges when I got it, but I had a couple of people, obviously in Los Angeles. This is the car capital of the world. There was someone who was willing for me to pay a small, phenomenal fee to get it restored.
Oh, wow.
And so I've raced it at the Monterey Historics. I've actually enjoyed it. And now it's pretty much like a museum piece.
Oh, it's absolutely amazing, amazing. Can we have a closer up look?
Yeah, absolutely.
With you telling us all about it.
Absolutely. All right, so I'm going to describe the car a little bit. This is a 1974 RSR. As you can see, it was sponsored by Hawaiian Tropic, which was really great. Without sponsorship, there is no racing. And George Dyer and Frizzell, when they campaigned this car, they campaigned in the IMSA series. So if you look at the car, a lot of stuff this is a 1974 Porsche, and if you look at the Porsches of today, it hasn't changed very much. They were very slippery cars aerodynamically. They had a great engine, ran long distance races. This car particularly, I think I said earlier, was second place twice in the 24 hours of Daytona, and it won Sebring overall, and that's what's really special about this car. If you look into the engine compartment here, it's a rear engine car, and this was really important about racing. Porsche had the engine in the rear. It needed people to understand how to drive a rear engine car. So it had its own characteristics and personalities of how to drive it. And this is a 3.0 liter engine, and it was built so well that this little car could drive and race 12 hours, 24 hours, and be dependable. And that's what the special thing about Porsche was. These cars might not have been the fastest out the gate, but in the end, they were still around. These were little German tanks. Well, now I'm sitting in the car, And this is my favorite spot. Actually, you know, I was talking about the car, the aerodynamics. I don't really know a lot about that. I know how to drive cars better than I know how to engineer them. That's why we have engineers helping us with that. But to drive this car is, it's so, unlike the new modern cars that I drive now, these cars of the 70s and the 60s, when I race in vintage racing, they're so visceral that the sound and the actual, the grip that the cars have, you know, they're not pushed down on the ground with all the, what we call today, driver aid. This didn't have any driver aid. It's very little downforce. When the car is running, you know where you're at, you know when it's going to break loose, and you can really fling these things around. This is just a great car to drive, great sounding car, great brakes, it's light, it's nimble. And like I said, the special thing about these cars was they could run 12, 24-hour races. And all they did was change tires, put some oil in it, and put some gas in it, and you went. And you won.
I'm here with Bruce Carl. And what did you bring to the Concours today?
Today I brought a 1952 Glasspar Roadster, built in Costa Mesa, California by Glasspar Boat Company. According to the Glasspar Club worldwide, there's approximately 29 in existence.
Really? And how'd you happen to buy this?
Believe it or not, I found the body. It was just a rolling chassis in 1974, and having played with cars since I was 12 years of age, I actually didn't know what it was when I found it, and it was in a throwaway newspaper.
Oh.
And obviously the man that sold it didn't know what he had either.
Oh, what a gem.
Thank you,
What
thank
a
you, thank you.
gem.
So we've owned it since '74, and initially I put a 4-cylinder Datsun engine in it, drove it approximately 3 miles and parked it for about 18 years. And now it's primarily was built for racing, but it is streetable and it's licensed, obviously, and it's a fun car to drive.
Oh, it looks like it. It looks like. Can we have a closer up look?
Absolutely. The body is all original. The front end is a cast aluminum grille, which is all original. The suspension is a late model Corvette front and rear. It's powered by a small block Chevrolet Muncie 4-speed transmission. Loaded weight is 2640, and it's a fun car to drive, once again. Okay, it's powered by a small block Chevrolet. Originally cast as a 400 cubic inch, and now it's presently de-stroked to 381 cubic inches. It puts out approximately 385 horsepower to the rear wheels. As you can see, it has a Holley dual pump carburation with a Muncie 4-speed behind it. I'd like to say a special thanks to a friend of mine of 50 years, engine builder Joe Nicosia, who is riding with me every time I turn the key on.
Thank you for joining us in Beverly Hills at the Concours d'Elegance. I'm Betty Wheaton. See you next time.